Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Diehlman at Halftime, the NBA podcast that tops all others. I'm your host, Larry Diehlman. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome aboard, and if you've been a loyal listener, welcome back. We have much to get to today and not a lot of time to do it. We have 5 sections that we'll get into: a general overview of the NBA this week, and our usual highlight, lowlight, random stat, and game of the week, and we'll wrap things up with a special section. Let's get to our content for the week. I might sound like a broken record, but it happened again. Jimmy Butler has been suspended by the Miami Heat. Butler just finished a 7-game suspension for conduct detrimental to the team. During the week, it was a 2-game absence for continued pattern of disregard of team rules, insubordinate conduct, and conduct detrimental to the team. Now today, Monday, January 27th, the Heat have suspended Butler indefinitely for walking out of a practice. We've already discussed Butler's drama in South Beach ad nauseum this season. He missed a team flight to Milwaukee the other day. The newest reports are saying that a potential Butler trade could include 4 or 5 teams. His preferred destination is the Phoenix Suns. Just this week, the Suns acquired 3 first-round picks from the Utah Jazz for a 2031 unprotected first-round pick. Things could be moving quickly soon. The NBA once again showed why expanding their product overseas is great for business. The San Antonio Spurs and the Indiana Pacers played both of their games for the season this week in Paris, France. This was for one reason and one alone: Victor Wembanyama. The Le Chennai native received thunderous applause as the Spurs faced the Pacers in Paris's Accor Arena. San Antonio won the first game on Thursday 140-110, where Wembanyama had 30 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists, and 5 blocks. The Pacers won the second game on Saturday 136-98. The NBA has played preseason and regular season games around the world, so hopefully Commissioner Adam Silver has more ideas like this up his sleeve. We were also introduced to the All-Star starters this week. For the East, it'll be Donovan Mitchell, Jalen Brunson, Jason Tatum, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Karl Anthony Towns. In the West, it'll be Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Steph Curry, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and Nikola Jokic. It's hard to believe that LeBron, at 40 years old, is still getting All-Star starting nods. Then again, this is mostly a popularity contest. Some of the starting snubs were LaMelo Ball, Anthony Edwards, and Victor Wembanyama. So today's episode marks a certain milestone. You might have heard it in the previous episode. This is the 50th episode of the Diehlman at Halftime podcast. So, appropriately, this episode is entitled 50. So, who's raising eyebrows at the moment as we get to the 50th episode of the podcast? Let's get to our highlight, the Milwaukee Bucks. It appears a team that was an early low light this season is turning a corner. Enter the Milwaukee Bucks. The Bucks are 25-18 and 4th in the Eastern Conference. With the team Milwaukee has, being a top 4 seed is expected, and they've won 8 of their last 10. Not bad. Giannis Antetokounmpo, the franchise cornerstone, is averaging 31.4 points, 12 rebounds, 5.8 assists, and 1.4 blocks per night. He's second in the league in points per game and 5th in rebounds per game. While the Bucks may not be heavy favorites to represent the East in the finals like Boston or even Cleveland, they're not a pushover. Damian Lillard is still a dangerous shooter. He may not be dropping 30 points per game anymore by himself in Portland, but he stretches the floor for players like Antetokounmpo. Brook Lopez and Chris Middleton are reliable options, despite the fact they're aging rapidly rapidly. Middleton, a former starter, is now primarily used off the bench. And Bobby Portis has made a name for himself on the team. The Bucks are looking to avenge their underwhelming playoff exits from the last 2 years. Let's see if they'll be a threat in April. Their next game is tonight, Monday, January 27th at 9 o'clock. They will be in Utah to face the Jazz. Let's go to our low light, and oh, look at that, the Miami Heat. Some stories get better with time, others get worse. The Miami Heat are going the wrong way. The Heat are 22-22 and 8th in the East. As we mentioned in the opener, the Jimmy Butler dilemma is arguably the main problem hanging over this franchise. While he's a great player, when he starts doing this kind of stuff, look out. Look up the end of his time in Minnesota to see what I mean. Tyler Hero has stepped up in Butler's absences, averaging career highs of 24 points, 5.5 rebounds, and 5.2 assists per game on 47.7% shooting and 40.5% from downtown. The Heat have a solid rotation outside of Butler and Hero, like Bam Adebayo, who's made an all-defensive team for 5 straight years, Terry Rozier, Jaime Jaquez, and Nikola Jovic. Not Nikola Jokic like the Nuggets, Jovic. However, one of Miami's issues is starting off season slow. They end up in the middle of the Eastern Conference standings as a result. Another is team president Pat Riley. While Riley has overseen championship runs in South Beach, LeBron James, Shaquille O'Neal, and now Jimmy Butler have had beef with him at some point. For now, the Heat just need to focus on trading Butler and attempt a playoff run. Their next game is tonight, Monday, January 27th at 7:30. They will host an in-state battle against the Orlando Magic. To get more insight into our low light this week, we have our 4th guest on Diehlman at Halftime Season 2. Let's get into it. So for our 4th guest of Season 2 on the Diehlman at Halftime podcast, we welcome Nick Earnshaw. Nick is the radio station coordinator at 91.5 WDBK-FM at Camden County College in Blackwood, New Jersey. In addition, he is a fill-in host and board operator for 97.3 ESPN-FM South Jersey, based in Northfield, and a freelance play-by-play broadcaster for the University of Pennsylvania. Formerly, Nick was a producer at 94.1 WIP in Philadelphia. He went to Camden County College for 2 years before transferring to Rowan University for his final 2 years and graduating with a communication and media studies degree in 2022. Nick, how are we doing today?
Harry, it's great to always talk to you. I appreciate the kind words. Thanks for having me on the program again. Second time around, I'm like, all right, we're reoccurring guests now. I love it. I love being a reoccurring guest. So I'm excited to talk some basketball with you. A lot going on in the NBA. You do a great job with the podcast, and I'm excited to break it all down with you.
Yeah, it's been a while, and like you said, getting some recurring guests, so it's always good to have you. So, Nick, I wanted to get your thoughts on the Miami Heat. They are our low light this week, and they've been dealing with some drama. So my first question for you, and probably what everybody and their uncle knows by now, the Jimmy Butler saga has been going on for weeks. He was suspended again for missing a team flight, and this is coming after the 7-game suspension earlier. So do you think Jimmy Butler gets dealt before the trade deadline? And if so, is there anyone besides Phoenix that would be a good idea?
Well, it is. It's a little more than drama down there. There's some beef between Pat Riley and Jimmy Butler in the front office. This is a fascinating story that's been going on for the past couple of weeks regarding Jimmy and Miami. This is nothing new with Jimmy Butler. I mean, how many times have we seen him frustrated, get upset, and want off a team, right? Been in Minnesota. Minnesota is probably the biggest case when it was, he was playing the backups like on his team and the 5-on-5, that story. That whole thing that happened up there in Minnesota. So this is nothing new. It's just this point in his career, you think maybe at some point Jimmy would have learned his place in the NBA, and probably not the greatest way to go about it because frankly, Larry, he has built such a great foundation there, legacy in Miami, and he's kind of throwing it all away at this point, and just fascinating. And he wants to be moved. He's all these antics. I mean, he first time he got suspended for 7 games, then puts out the Michael Jordan-esque press release saying I'm back. Post game press conference, he wears the number 45 Bulls jersey, pretty wild. And then he's just acting immature manner. And in fact, he wore the 45 jersey, mentioned the Phoenix Suns as his preferred destination. They he wore against Portland the other night colors of the Phoenix Suns on dude, crazy. I mean, so he's doing all of these antics, which is insane. You ask about Phoenix, and they're kind of the team, right? That's just been talked about the most. And they go out and make a trade. They get 3 first-round picks back. They trade a 2031 pick. They're getting picks from Utah now. So they're gearing up, it feels like, to make a strong push to get him. They want him. According to Marcus Spears of ESPN, though, essentially right now, Jimmy Butler doesn't like originally he had a list of teams he wanted to go to. Suns, Mavericks, the Rockets, and the Golden State Warriors. Oh, it's just get me out of Miami. Don't send me to the Memphis Grizzlies. That's according to Marcus Spears of ESPN. So, I mean, I think maybe one of the other teams I read maybe could be involved is the Nets, maybe the Warriors. If they come out of nowhere, maybe make a move. But it seems like all signs are pointing if he is traded by the deadline, get moved to Phoenix. That just feels like the place. They seem to want him. Seems to want to go there. They make the moves for extra assets. And they can claim all they want that they don't want to move on and they don't want to trade those assets for Jimmy. It's clear indication they're trying to gear up to get him to come to Phoenix. I don't know if they'll be able to meet Miami's asking price. I think the relationship soured so much. Jimmy Butler, I mean, he was at an event in Miami with comedian Andrew Schultz, and Andrew Schultz even joked on the mic. Don't tell him that people were here. Don't tell anyone that he wasn't at practice, whatever it may be. So I think it's pretty hysterical. Some of the antics. It's just typical Jimmy Butler. This has happened before. It feels like Groundhog Day again. To go back to your question, Knicks feels like the destination. I don't really see any other place he would go.
Yeah, some good points there. Like you said, this is just like the Jimmy Butler experience. Like even going back to his Minnesota days, the good old Carl Anthony Towns, Andrew Wiggins days, and he's whooping the butts of the starters with the
Yeah.
third stringers, and then he goes to the Sixers, then he goes to the Heat, and all that jazz. So I don't know, like with the whole Suns thing. Number one, I don't know how they have this much salary cap with Durant and Beal and Booker. And I've been seeing reports that this could end up being a 4 or 5 team trade. It could be that complex. So we'll have to see. The deadline is rapidly approaching, so it's going to get very interesting in the coming weeks. So, my next point, you actually mentioned it. What are your thoughts on the Pat Riley situation in Miami? So, Pat Riley is the team president. Riley has been in South Beach through championship runs, but players like LeBron James, Shaquille O'Neal, and now Jimmy Butler have had issues with him, and basically has he been running people out of town? So is Pat Riley the reason why the Heat are not getting star players, and are they stuck like this until he retires or leaves?
This is a fantastic question, Larry. And I'm gonna bring up a larger point in just a second. Pat Riley, he's 79 years of age at the moment. Just want to put that out. That's how old Pat Riley. Okay. Miami Heat forward, Antoine Walker. He went on Sirius XM radio, NBA radio, and he said depending on how Riley handles the situation from Jimmy Butler, it really could deter other players from coming here in the future. Like you mentioned, LeBron's left, Jack. Jimmy's probably on the way out in the next coming days, right? So this is really nothing new with Pat Riley. He's such a winner, and we know the culture of Miami is very important to the Heat organization. And listen, they've won championships, so you can't argue with the success Pat Riley has had throughout his tenure in South Beach and being a part of that organization, especially an executive. Okay. Here's the overarching. This is bigger than just Pat Riley. Pat Riley's 79 years old. And funny, I've actually had off the record conversations, on the record conversations, coaches, all levels. AAU, college, BA, professional, G League as well. This is a new culture that we're in, new type of player, especially at the college ranks. This goes deeper than just the NBA. We know the NBA is a players' league. Know the players run it. They choose where they go. Doesn't matter if they're under contract or not. Know that already. That's part of the issue, right? There is a culture now. It's very different, especially in the United States. I've seen this argument across spectrum basketball, right? How players are being coached, how AAU has affected everything, how NIL has affected everything. The one constant I get from talking to coaches is that continue to believe that this is just different type of player. This is different type of mindset. Players don't want to be coached as hard. Don't want to, you know, team player anymore. They don't want to play team basketball. Very individualized, right? The ISO, a lot of shooting threes, etc. And you're seeing a combination of old school versus new school kind of clash. And not to say that Jimmy Butler is like new school, but like, oh, he's in his mid 30s for goodness sake. Pat Riley's of that ilk, a lot of team basketball, right? And different mindset, want to be coached hard, etc. All that type of stuff. And I've talked to coaches about this. Same thing I get. Players don't have that mindset. It's a lot about me, me, me. Seen it kind of here play out with Jimmy Butler, right? He's always asking out like he did in Minnesota, now in Miami. This is more of a culture thing around the game of basketball. And you're seeing it across other sports. It starts with NIL. It's that flash, old school versus new school mentality, I think is now making its way into the NBA. I just think Pat Riley, at this point, he's 79 years old, new type of player walking in. You're already seeing like college coaches resign, things of that nature. I mean, Nick Saban, one of them. You've seen other college coaches leave. Like coaches are resigning who are of that older school elk. So I think it's a culture thing. I think it goes deeper than just Pat Riley himself because Miami's had a lot of success. Pat Riley has a lot to do with it, but you're starting to see a new era and a new school up into the NBA. So I think it's an even wider discussion than just Pat Riley, Larry.
So yeah, some good points there. And like you said, like the old school and potentially new school clashing. And like you said, I mean, I didn't realize Pat Riley's 79 years old. Wow. Riley probably understood back in the day that this is a certain way to get a championship, and this is the way to keep the players happy. And now here we are in 2025, and it might not be the same discussions or the same coaching anymore. So unfortunately for him, now he's got another player saga on his hands. So next, as usual, the Heat are floating around 500 as they coast through the regular season. How can they start seasons off better instead of just heating up right before the postseason begins? Honestly, right now they're giving me like Cincinnati Bengals vibes where they start the season slow and then they wonder why they're like one of the bottom wild card or play-in seeds. So what are your thoughts on the Heat? Like what is it with them and slow seasons?
Here's the thing, right? Like a lot of it has to do with Jimmy Butler. Like Jimmy Butler's carry. I just think it's an overarching thing in the NBA, right? Like there's not as much emphasis on the regular season. Now they've had injuries happen, right? Right now they're sitting in that 9 seed, they're around 500 mark. They're in the play-in. They're just one of those teams that don't really get it together until the postseason. Remember, I mean, we've seen it, we know it. There's a lack of emphasis on regular season play at this point. Also, de-incentivized regular season, adding the play-in, right? Like you have an opportunity to play 1 or 2 games, get right back into the postseason and win a couple of those. I mean, this is a team that usually is right around in the mix, plays hard, plays well in the postseason. I think it's just because the regular season has just been so de-incentivized, Larry, overall. And I don't think not an emphasis on starting strong. Remember, Jimmy Butler, he's got hurt a lot. They've dealt with injuries as well throughout the regular season, especially early on too. So I think that's a league wide issue, my opinion. Team starting slow, like resting guys. We know the 76ers, they love resting guys, and their entire team there, they start slow every year. I think it's a league-wide thing with where the game's at right now. You made a great comparison to the Cincinnati Bengals. Like, they just start slow every year. It's just very odd. And I think part of it had to do with injuries with the Miami Heat as well. But it's one of those teams that kind of coasts through the regular season. Once the playoffs turns on, a switch flips. When you have a guy like Jimmy Butler, who they've had over the past couple of seasons, why they've made NBA Finals appearances, just start hitting big shots. Things tighten up. Eric Spoelstra is able to show off what he can do in the postseason with that half court setting, right? Everything tightens up in the postseason. And I think that plays to Miami's strengths out of this running gun, shooting a three, getting to the line type of deal, where they can focus on the half court setting in the postseason. And I think with guys like Butler, Bam Adebayo, Tyler Herro, Duncan Robinson can knock down a three. I think they could set up their offense a little bit better when things get shorter in the postseason.
Yeah, some good points there. And like you said, I think the regular season in the NBA has just like gotten to the point where a lot of players don't really care until like February. And then it's like, oh, okay, we got to start fighting for a playoff seed. At a league like the NFL, where, you only play 17 regular season games, every week counts. And going back to the Bengals for a second, maybe if they would have won week one against the Patriots, they'd be in the playoffs right now. Who knows? But with the NBA, you have 82 games. Not every game might need to have the same amount of I care about it, like from the player's perspective, versus, this other game. Baseball, same thing. 162 games. A player might be like, all right, as long as we win this little series against, the Mets or whoever, we'll be okay. I don't care. We don't need to win every single game, like all three games. So I think, like what you said, the regular season has gotten to that point, but with the Heat, maybe if they tried a little harder, or maybe if they were a little healthier in the beginning part, maybe it wouldn't be as bad. And not every day you have a Jimmy Butler saga soap opera on your hands. So to wrap things up, regardless if Jimmy is dealt or not, can a core of Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo make any noise in the playoffs or even in future regular seasons? Or maybe do they need one more star to compete? I mean, you have those two. You have guys like Jaime Jaquez. You have Nikola Jovic, not Jokic, Jovic. And some of these other young players, the Heat turn G League players into superstars. You see, I can't think of his name right now, Gabe Vincent. He's on the Lakers, and now he's like trash. So they make, these shooters or G League players look good, and then they go somewhere else and they're not. So, do the Heat need another star? They just need more role players. Trade deadline. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I listen. They do a great job of developing players down there. You mentioned Gabe Vincent, Caleb Martin, another guy who's very rated with the Heat. He turned into a really solid role player for them. Now with the 76ers. Listen, yeah, they turn garbage into gold, correct? I mean, that's what they do in Miami. Unfortunately, fortunately, I do like their core. Unfortunately, need a star. I mean, they need a guy like Jimmy Butler. Fortunately, he wants out and he's a little bit older and he gets hurt all the time. So, like the core surrounding somebody that's at another level, a superstar caliber player, star caliber player, they would need an addition. I don't think this is a team that would make any noise. I mean, if you look at the roster, just talent with Boston, not competing with Knicks. Even Cleveland, they're not competing. Right now, they're in the ninth spot, floating around 500. I would take Milwaukee, Indiana. Like, I know it's the Eastern Conference. The Eastern Conference isn't greatest. Still don't see them competing with these teams, especially trade away Butler. Let's say they do that by the deadline. Even if the Suns even dealt Bradley Beal or Jimmy Butler, I don't even think Bradley Beal's enough. Like, I think you need another echelon superstar of that core around if you want to compete for a title. To get to the postseason, yeah, sure, they could get into the play-in with that type of roster. But it's great and all, but this is not a team expect to really compete for a championship. I just don't see it. With Tyler Herro, he's a nice player. Jovic, you brought up as well. I mean, Duncan Robinson's been a nice piece. Terry Rozier. We have nice pieces, just not enough. Like Bam Adebayo's not a superstar. He's a nice center. Good. But you need a guy like a Jimmy Butler to lead that team. And with his attitude, that's why they got them. finals appeal. That's why they had finals, right? Made some noise in the postseason. So yeah, I just don't see a team Butlerless at core. Not going to be. They're not going to do enough. They're just not strong enough. Can't outshoot teams, my estimation, like a Boston or the New York Knicks postseason, even Cleveland as well. I just don't see enough talent there elevate them to the next level. Could they get in the postseason as a bottom tier seed? Sure, they'll be stuck in purgatory. So they would need more, especially if they deal Butler. Bradley Beal, in my opinion, is too passive. Jimmy Butler was an aggressive player. I think they would need to either draft somebody and develop, or they would have to go out and find another star player to lead that squad. I just don't think that's enough for you to elevate yourself as a championship contender with where they're at right now.
Yeah, some good points there. Yeah, I don't really know if Bradley Beal is. I mean, if he was traded, I don't think he's enough. You see what he did on the Wizards, and the Wizard. I mean, well, the Wizards have like a bottom five roster every year, but still, Bradley Beal. I just don't know if he's that type of player to lead a team. And it's frustrating too because Jimmy Butler, you could probably argue, is one of the best Heat players of all time just based on resume and accolades. But the way that this has deteriorated, I saw a report earlier today that just said the Butler relationship is just gone. Like it's not coming back. It's not salvageable. So it seems like he will be traded eventually, or I don't know, maybe not cut, but just let the contract ride out. But yeah, this Heat team might be stuck in purgatory for now, but we'll see what Eric Spoelstra cooks up. Pat Riley's got something up his sleeve. They have the championship experience, so it'll just be a matter of waiting and see. So, Nick, thank you for stopping by. It's always good to have you. And thank you again for especially being here for the 50th episode of Diehlman at Halftime. And we'll try to get you back on in the future.
Larry, thanks for having me. I appreciate you having me on the 50th episode. Credit to you for your consistency. You always put out great content, have some great guests as well. So I appreciate you having me on, getting to chop it up with you, talking basketball. It's always a great time. I look forward to the next time. Very much appreciated.
Thank you. Let's go over to our random stat. Some players are just known to dominate, no questions asked. Well, in the regular season at least. LA Clippers star James Harden recorded his 104th 40-point game over the weekend. No other active player has more than 80. The usual suspects make up the rest of the top five. LeBron James with 77, Kevin Durant with 71, Steph Curry with 68, and Damian Lillard with 59. Oh, and Harden has the most 50-point games among active players, too, with 23. Even with his Hall of Fame resume coming into focus, Harden has bounced around the league in recent years. About 3 seasons in Oklahoma City, about 8 seasons in Houston, 2 half seasons in Brooklyn, a year and a half in Philadelphia, and now 2 years with the Clippers. And yet he continues to shred any defense from any team you throw at him. At 35 years old, Harden can still average 20 points per game, despite his field goal percentage being questionable. What has made the Beard dangerous is his patented step-back jump shot, which has been borderline unguardable, especially in his prime. He can drive to the rim, and his free throw percentages are usually high. I have no doubt the Beard has a handful of 40-point games left in the tank. We just have to step back and watch. Let's go to our Game of the Week up next. For this week's Game of the Week, let's do the Atlanta Hawks at Indiana Pacers. This game is on Saturday, February 1st at 5 o'clock. This will be the second home game for the Pacers since returning from Paris. Atlanta and Indiana are separated by 3 games in the Eastern Conference, despite being 4 seeds away from one another. Indiana is 5th, Atlanta's 9th. 2 of the Hawks' young stars, Jalen Johnson and rookie Zachary Rissache, are out for at least a week or more. Other than that, it should be smooth sailing for both sides, medically speaking. Trae Young of Atlanta and Tyrese Halliburton of Indiana are two of the best passing guards in the NBA. Young leads the league in assists per game, while Halliburton is fifth. The Hawks have great guards like Dyson Daniels and Bogdan Bogdanovic, and the Pacers utilize forwards like Benedict Mathurin and Pascal Siakam. It should be a good game. I'm going to take the Hawks 113-109. Finally, we're going to wrap up with a special section entitled Note from the Author. I want to take this time to thank you, my listeners and guests, for your continued support of the Diehlman at Halftime podcast. It's hard to believe that we have already hit the 50th episode. Trust me when I say it's always a fun time recording episodes every Monday night. Well, usually Monday nights. We're about halfway through the regular season, so the excitement will only grow from here. Here's to the next 50. Well, that's all the time we have for today. If you haven't already, make sure to follow me on social media. I have 2 X or Twitter accounts and 2 Instagram accounts. The podcast accounts are under @Diehlman_NBA for both X and Instagram. My personal X account is @LarryDiehlman18, and my personal Instagram is @Mr_Sports18. They're also in the description on Buzzsprout, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And thank you to Nick Earnshaw for being our guest this week on the podcast. Remember, you can follow him on X and Instagram @Nernshaw Radio. That is NEARNSHAW Radio. And don't forget to spread the word about Diehlman at Halftime. See you next time, fellow Hoops fans, and thank you to all of you for making the 50th episode possible.